Sometimes, speedrun communities grow up in isolation, unaware that similar groups are out there, working towards the same goal. The knowledge that each holds, unbeknownst to the outside world. But when these collectives meet, their knowledge is shared, propelling all runners forward. Today, we look into the history of Kirby Air Ride. Here, the story of all tracks and all tracks no dupes are intertwined into a single narrative. A romance where Western Tenacity meets Eastern Mastery. Follow along as we witness worlds collide. Welcome to Speed Docs. While Kirby isn't known as a racing franchise, in 2003, HAL Laboratory adapted the pink puffball in his universe into a solid racing game. With tight controls, creative levels, and solid mechanics beneath the hood, Kirby Air Ride can challenge even the toughest racer veterans. With the game's built-in time trials mode, detailed in-game timer, and leaderboard functions, the game is ripe for speedrunning. As a family-friendly Nintendo game, it should be no surprise that the controls are simple. In fact, most of the game is played with one button, A. While holding A, Kirby slows down and starts filling the charge meter. While charging, Kirby's turning speeds up, which is good for tight corners. Releasing A uses up your charge, giving you a speed boost. Most of the time though, using up your charge before the meter is full gives you a weak boost. Besides the charge feature, your Warp Star can glide when it catches air, do a spin attack to take out enemies or opponents, and tap boost pads for extra speed. The Air Ride mode has 9 tracks: Fantasy Meadows, Celestial Valley, Beanstalk Park, Frozen Hillside, Sky Sands, Magma Flows, Machine Passage, Checker Night, and Nebula Belt. Air Ride mode has 16 different rides to choose from, but we'll go over those as they become relevant to the story. Around 2005, we start to see people sharing screenshots of their best times. A major hub for high scores, CyberScore, shows around a dozen different racers pushing the times down for each individual track. Runners quickly find a few rides faster than the others, namely Jetstar, Wheelie Scooter, and Rocket Star. Unfortunately, the proof system for CyberScore allows for screenshots of the best times page, meaning that there is essentially no video footage of the strategies and techniques used to get these times. A flash in the pan, the CyberScore community is only active for a few years. The combined knowledge dies with the pages as the runners move on to other games and hobbies. In 2010, a runner tries to revive the Kirby Air Ride speedrunning community with a thread on Speed Demos Archive. It's quite clear though that runners here don't have access to the information that the CyberScore runners did. The times posted here can't compare to the runs done just a few years earlier. It seems that before it could really get off the ground, Kirby Air Ride wasn't destined to succeed as a speed game. In the years that followed, popular speedrun racing site Speedruns Live comes along. Speedrunners were racing everything they could get their hands on. Eventually, a few runners face off in Kirby Air Ride. They define a category to race in, all tracks. Not to take this too seriously, they also decide to race exclusively with Bulkstar, one of the slowest and least intuitive rides. On January 29, 2012, Ring Rush sets the world record for all tracks with the 3306 RTA. But the runners weren't finished. Immediately after that race, they lined up on the starting line again, this time to race with Slickstar without the use of the A button. No, really, it's a category called All Tracks Slickstar No A-Press. Slickstar is fast, but it doesn't have any real traction for turning. Normally, you have to charge, turn, and release in order to change directions in a timely fashion. Even without any turning control, Ring Rush again sets the All Tracks world record with a 28:12 on the same day. Somehow, All Tracks Slickstar No A-Press became the most popular category for Kirby Air Ride on Speedruns Live for the next few years. No one ever beat Ring Rush's time, but there were dozens of races. Finally, on February 5th, 2014, during the early days of Twitch TV, runner Russ4312 does an All Tracks run in 19 minutes and 28 seconds, the first ever serious attempt at an All Tracks speedrun. When the video was posted in the Speedrun subreddit, it garnered a bit of attention. Kirby Air Ride was a pretty popular game, yet up until now, it wasn't attracting many speedrunners. With this first attempt though, there were now plenty of eyes on the game.
I think, I was just like sort of browsing the subreddit, and then Russ's post popped up one day. And I was like, oh, sick, someone's actually running Kirby Air Ride. Like, I wouldn't have thought that a racing game had any like big speedrun potential. I was like super new to it all.
Again, it was clear that the knowledge of the forebears was forgotten. While it was a decent start, the run could be compared to a casual playthrough with purpose.
Well, it sucked. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't even close to being optimized.
I clicked on it and I watched it, and I was like, oh, that was like sort of disappointment. It was just like, looked like just a casual playthrough, like some dude was just like, I think most of his like vehicles was a wheelie bike or something, and I was like, oh man, I could like destroy that. Which is, sounds pretty egotistic, but I was like, yeah, cool. So I just like saw that, and then I tried to find more. I was like, oh, surely there must be others, but then there wasn't a whole lot, so I was like, oh cool, like it's an opportunity to get a sweet game off the ground in terms of speedrunning, so that was my introduction to it.
This run sparked a fire though, this time one that wouldn't be snuffed out.
The first like few months I was just so pumped, because I was like, this is like uncharted territory, for us anyway, until I found the Japanese IL leaderboard, which changed a lot of things.
On July 3rd, 2014, just a few months after Russ's run, user CardinalPickles made a Reddit post calling out all Kirby Air Ride runners. Pickles had stumbled across a Japanese Kirby Air Ride high score website called Speedrider. With times as early as cyberscores, this site had a blooming community who never stopped playing and pushing the game. The Japanese community was effectively light years ahead of the Western community, who lost the knowledge from the early days.
But yeah, found that, and that was just like, my mind exploded. I'm sure everyone like who'd played the game before and had an interest in the game and saw that would have been the same. It's just like the most crazy strats, and everyone's just like professional. I'm like, oh wow, so this has happened. They must have been like working on it since like for years.
While this website was a treasure trove of techniques and strategies, the language barrier made it difficult for any non-Japanese player to really understand what was going on. While the members of the subreddit were interested and amazed, they eventually gave up and went back to their old ways. Frustrated, Pickles put his head down and went to work. On August 1st, 2014, runner Stonewaker is the first person to beat Russ's All Tracks run. Stonewaker uses a different set of rides than Russ does, but it seems to be more of a personal preference thing at this point. Inspired by Stonewaker, more runners come out of the woodwork to give the run a try. Over the next few months, the comment sections of the Reddit posts began to bring out new potential runners. As a community started to grow, the rules for the category began to take shape. Instead of playing in the start game mode, it was decided that the run should be done in time trials mode.
Yeah, so that's the first thing I noticed on Russ's run, and like, there were computer NPCs, and the enemies were just like totally random, and I was like, why would you do this when Time Trials has a completely consistent standard spawns across the board? So that really bugged me, and I was like trying to contact him with not much reply. So I was like, well, look, the community is small enough. I'll just sort of take charge and be like, look, we need to set some rules, and Time Trials makes the most sense. Like, it's going to mean, we're adding 5-6 minutes because of the 3 laps on each course, but the RNG in the normal air ride mode is just like, you can't ignore that at all. So, and it gives you know potential for all the strats that the Japanese runners had found. Yeah, time trials is like the core of this. What makes it so competitive. So,
the two modes have a few major differences. 1. Time trials is played with one racer, with no AI players to race against. 2. All the tracks are 3 laps in time trials instead of 2 or 3 depending on track length. 3. Time trials has set enemy spawns and patterns, meaning that there is no RNG variance between runners or attempts. 4. And probably most important, killing enemies gives you a speed boost, with bigger boosts the more enemies you kill at once. Because the spawns are consistent for all runners on time trials, players are able to route out the most optimal path through a track. Stonewaker's run was done in start game mode, just like Russ's, but his 1856 time was extrapolated to be around a 26:07 in time trials timing, so that is the world record time to beat. In October of 2014, runners Pearstrike and P-Bear-J make their first appearance. Within a few days of attempts, Pearstrike takes the world record with a 25:52 on October 13th, 2014.
No. Oh my god. Wait, shit, what was it? 25:52? What? Did I just, what? Wait, no, oh sorry, I just hit the split twice, I think, is that real? Wait, yeah, that's real. Wait, hold on, let me check, let me just make this as, yeah, that's not my summer best. That's my personal best, holy shit. Oh my god, dude, 25:52. Sorry, I hit the split button twice. So it's good. No, we're in there.
Pearstrike was one of the few runners who took heed of Pickles' post about Speedrider. While he wasn't experienced enough to take the best strats from the Japanese, he did try to adopt some of the easier ones. Pear would lower the time again to a 25:51 on October 24th as he started to improve.
Alright, fuck. Oh! Oh! 51! 51!
Pearstrike would rely on Swerve Star and Jetstar for a majority of the run. Swerve Star can't turn unless it's in the air or charging. Swerve Star is also a bit different in that it essentially stops on a dime and accelerates back to full speed instantly. Swerve has a neat trick as well. By driving into walls at a specific angle and doing a spin move, the pushback from the wall actually propels you forward faster, giving runners a decent speed boost against long straight walls. Unsurprisingly, this was one of the few strats that the Westerners learned from the Japanese. Jetstar is a good glider star, but it gets a major boost of speed every time it goes airborne. Runners can maintain that boost longer if they immediately land after the boost by tapping A as soon as they lift off. Within a week, P-Bear-J would follow in Pearstrike's footsteps and just beat out his time, using the same ride track route.
No fucking way. Holy shit! Oh my god! 536! No way. Oh my, This one goes out to Ralph. I don't know how I feel right now.
Pearstrike and P-Bear were inching forward, saving a few seconds here and there. They weren't prepared for their next competitor. On October 27th, a day after P-Bear-J got his 25:36, CardinalPickles uploaded a run completed in 24:13, almost a minute and a half faster than the previous world record. Tired of watching racers ignore the Japanese strats, Pickles decided it was time to show them the true potential of what the run could be. Sometimes, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Pickles had spent the last 2 months practicing some of the harder strategies from the Speedrider boards. When he finally felt comfortable with the run, he recorded his attempts, ready to blow the competition away.
Yeah, I was surprised that I was the only one using those strats, and I guess people just didn't know. And so I just really wanted to spread, like, guys, look at this. Like, this is insane. And like, even the strats that I was using weren't the top strats at the time. I just sort of picked fast enough, that were easy enough to learn. So, I guess once my time started to improve, people sort of caught on, and they're like, okay, we can knuckle down and learn some of these new strats.
And yeah, we started looking into it, but we didn't start learning all the really hard vehicles like Scooter right away. And then when he did his run, then we were like, okay, well now we have to. So that's when we started learning Scooter and Rocket more and all that. Yeah. That was because he knew of the Japanese individual level world record videos, and he would practice them and try to replicate them. He was the first one to really do that, and and that was before we really messed around with it. Yeah, and so he just came in and he beat us by I think like a minute and a half. It quickly, like once you really know the strats and really start optimizing, that wasn't even super optimized, but that was still such a huge step. And that was probably the most important world record, honestly, in my opinion, because that was what really brought the Japanese community to the Western community, like what really opened it up.
Right off the bat, Pickles uses Slick Star on Frozen Hillside and Rocket Star on Magma Flows, Machine Passage, and Checker Knight.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Slick Star, it doesn't turn basically. If you don't boost, you won't turn, so you can hold left or right when it turns slightly when you're not boosting, but when you're boosting and holding A, you can turn any direction and you'll keep all your forward momentum until you let go of the A button. So, and while you're sliding, you're on the ground, so you roll over any boost pads and you get a full boost. So what you're trying to do on Frozen Hillside is sort of slide into these boosts and line them all up in a row basically to get some insane speeds. And also there's a lot of like slopes, so if you're heading down a slope holding A on the Slick Star, you're building speed as well. And because you don't lose any momentum while you're sliding, you'll see runners, you'll slide down one way, quickly change direction by letting go of the A button real quick, but then sliding again so you don't lose any momentum. So it's just like slide, boost slide, boost slide, boost slide, and it's just so cool to watch. And it's like, oh, you have to really know the level, because a lot of it's actually blind as well. Like you're not facing the direction that you're traveling. Super cool.
Rocket Star is the other sleeper pick. While most casual players will find Rocket Star to be overall pretty slow and cumbersome, it happens to be one of the fastest stars across most courses in the right hands. Rocket Star takes a while to charge up. However, it gets a significantly larger boost out of the charge. It also gets more speed out of all speed boosts in the game, including boost pads and killing enemies. With careful routing, Rocket Star can gain and maintain high speeds throughout long courses by spacing out boost pads, enemies, and full charges. Pickles mentions that there are even harder strats using the wheelie scooter, but he doesn't fully understand how it works. He does attempt a wall spin on Beanstalk Park, but it's not very effective. All in all, Pickles really opened up people's minds to what the run could look like with even intermediate level strategies.
Yeah, it kind of like once we got that IL website, we would go on there and we would try out like all the top vehicles. But the top ones, usually we couldn't figure out how to do it. Like we didn't know how to spin dash well, and with Scooter, of course, and we didn't know how to do some other things, like we didn't know how to use Jetstar super well. We would usually just try to pick one of the top vehicles per each track, one that was probably in like the top 5 or top 3 of vehicles, and yeah, just try to mess around with them. And we would use one that was like pretty easy to pick up, that you didn't need to know too many complicated techniques, just whatever we could figure out, really.
After seeing the light, Pearstrike follows Pickles' wisdom and tries to learn all he can from the Japanese community. After going back to the drawing board, Pearstrike comes back with a hybrid route, adopting some of the more obvious Japanese routes. He also opts to go for a few easier yet more consistent routes as well, namely using Swerve Star on Frozen Hillside and Machine Passage.
Yeah, I mean, once you have the videos and you start learning for yourself and messing around for yourself, things really start clicking faster than you would think. So it took me probably about a month to get acquainted with the faster strats. And these, keep in mind, still weren't like the current fast strats. These were like the second wave of fast strats. These were still like the easier of the Japanese strats, like the easier Japanese vehicle track combinations. But they were still so much faster than what we were doing. So,
on November 26th, Pearstrike gets a 24:10, slowly climbing back to the top.
Oh my god, here we go, everybody. Here we go. Here we go.
Pickles had lost a lot of time on the last few stages, mainly because he was still new to speedrunning the game and the route. Pearstrike's hybrid route was easy enough to be consistently good and fast enough to keep up with Pickles' route. But in the end, it was a temporary solution. CardinalPickles would double down on the Japanese route, choosing to get better at the route rather than to simply take the easy way out. In time, it was clear that Pickles' vehicle route outclassed Pearstrike's.
To me, like, these people were just like the gods of the game, so I was like taking it, anything they said as like gospel. So.
Only 2 weeks later, CardinalPickles fired back with a 23:39 on December 11th, blowing Pearstrike's route out of the water yet again.
23:39, yeah, that's what I thought. That was a pretty good debut boat.
Both players would take some time off as 2014 came to a close. Secretly, they were both probably practicing their routes throughout January. Finally, on February 12th, 2015, Pearstrike catches up and beats CardinalPickles' time by 1 second with a 23:38.
There it is, boys. The old world record. We just tied it. The old world record. 38, baby. 38, baby. Woo! 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 Woo!
Unfortunately for our boy Pearstrike, Pickles would upload a 23:22 on the same day, immediately beating the record. Again.
Whoa! Really? Dang.
Pickles' riot and track route was just too good. Pearstrike couldn't keep up forever. Soon, Pearstrike's route would top out, and he wouldn't be able to pass up Pickles with his old strats.
yeah, no, he was going sicko mode. He was killing it like once he was really going at it. And yeah, that was a great motivation for both of us.
Determined to get ahead of Pearstrike before he had a chance to catch up, Pickles knocks out a 23:08 later that month. Using the same route as his last run, Pickles was chasing after the Japanese strats like no one had before him. Seeing the true potential of the run, he wasn't satisfied with his times as they were. Unlike Pearstrike, Pickles was really trying to understand all the mechanics behind the run to maximize his speed and capture the same essence as the Speedrider IL times. By now, it was clear. Runners had to adapt to keep up. Pearstrike would get to work grinding out Rocket Star tracks, as well as learning Slick Star for Frozen Hillside. He refused to give up Swerve Star and Machine Passage though, as it was essentially just as fast, and he was pretty consistent with the track. Finally, on March 2nd, 2015, Pearstrike comes back with a 23:04.
This is fucking it, dude. Oh my god! Are you fucking... 23. Oh my god, dude!
While CardinalPickles and Pearstrike were battling it out for the top spot, a quiet F-Zero-GX speedrunner was lurking in the background. A talented racing game speedrunner and IL grinder, SuperSANIC was following along and keeping up with the top two runners.
I started to really do like all tracks runs around the fall, it's like October around that. But the thing is, at that point, I didn't have a capture card, so I was kind of lurking for a little bit. I didn't really have like this online persona I have now, so it took me a little while to put that together. So I just kind of lurked.
Blindsiding both Pearstrike and CardinalPickles, SuperSANIC gets a 22:35 on March 10th, 2015, about a week after Pearstrike caught up to Pickles. Using the same route that Pickles did, SANIC flew past the other runners. He had been studying the mechanics and had a solid grasp on the game's controls. Much to CardinalPickles and Pearstrike's chagrin, it seems like there was still so much more to learn.
Because some really good runners started coming up. So when SuperSANIC came in, who had experience with racing games at F-Zero GX, man, he came out and just like floored us, which is cool. Because I was like, sweet, the game, I always love seeing the game getting pushed.
He always does that. That's the story of his life. I think he's just like grinds really hard in the background for like a week leading up to it, or maybe longer depending on what it is. But yeah, he just drops his times. You'll never know when he's actually like playing the game or anything. He'll just drop it out of nowhere. It's such an alpha move. He's probably the most alpha air-eyed runner, I'll say that.
Remember when I said that the Japanese community was light years ahead of the Western community? Some of the Japanese runners had been grinding the game for years and had access to strategies and techniques that runners outside of their group couldn't grasp. Well, in April of 2015, the Japanese gods of Olympus reached down to the mortal realm to share their divine knowledge in the only way they knew how, by absolutely destroying the category. On April 15th, 2015, runner Yokaze completes an all-stages run in 20 minutes and 46 seconds, almost 2 minutes faster than the fastest English time. What could he possibly be doing to achieve a time like this? Yokaze was running with wheelie scooter on every track. Remember when CardinalPickles said that there were harder strats with wheelie scooter that he didn't understand? Well, Yokaze was very familiar with the technique, as he held the individual level world record for most of the tracks with wheelie scooter. But what was he doing that was so fast? Similar to Swervestar's wall spin trick, Scooter also has an interesting wall spin interaction. By spinning into a wall and charging, you fly forward at almost 3 times your normal speed for a second or two.
Our world was flipped upside down. It was crazy. Yeah, that blew us away. Like, we knew they were good out there, of course, but because we were watching their videos. But yeah, that was we didn't even know he was gonna do that. We didn't even know that they knew about us. And yeah, that was sick. But that was probably the second most important record. Obviously, I don't know, maybe first. That was a very important one though, because that's when me and David and SANIC too, but when we really, focused and started working together and figuring out how spin dashing really worked.
Wheelie scooter is incredibly technical, so the Western community was unable to utilize the ride. After getting the All Tracks world record though, Yokaze uploaded a video showing off his hands doing the trick on Nebula Belt. Finally, the Japanese could get the message across the language barrier. After tearing through the record, Yokaze effectively opened the gates and allowed the rest of the world to catch up.
It was just such a massive time cut using strats I'd still had much of an idea on. And with that language barrier, it was pretty shortly after he started putting up hand cam videos and stuff, so it became a bit easier. They weren't like shutting us down, they were trying to teach us.
Yeah, so I think around the time that I joined and before and for time after, the non-Japanese community, so I'll just call it the Western community, the Speedrun.com community, the streaming Twitch community, etc., was really primitive, honestly. We're all playing on the US version. We kind of had this idea that Japanese was faster, but we didn't really know anything about it. We were using not Scooter Everywhere, which Scooter Everywhere is pretty much the fastest. The times weren't very good. We didn't have great understanding of a lot of techniques and stuff like that. I was basically, when Yokaze came in, he was kind of he guided us forward to be okay, well, this is what the game's supposed to be played like. Let's work towards that. And we did. And then basically every time, every time we would improve a little bit, Yokaze would come in and improve it more and more.
And catch up they would. It wasn't quickly, but over several months, runners new and old answered the call. Pearstrike would end up dropping his other speed games in order to fully focus on air ride. Around this time, several important runners joined the scene, namely Waves and One David J. On a side note, it was discovered that emulator runs loaded a bit faster than console runs. Instead of banning emulators, the community switched to in-game time, which added up the times of each track, as noted at the end screen. It was also discovered that the Japanese version was slightly faster than the English version. Due to the way the ride's weights are calculated, all of the rides are slightly lighter on Japanese. This means that their speed doesn't degrade as quickly, and they have better acceleration. There are also a few quirks with Scooter that allow it to maintain its boost speeds for longer. This is most notable in the final stretch of Checker Night. In all, the Japanese version saves around 30 seconds over English. While the Western community now had the knowledge of how to use Scooter, they didn't have the experience or skill to pull it off yet. Pearstrike would learn how to use Scooter on the easier tracks, and then Rocket Star on the harder ones. After 7 months of practice, Pearstrike finally beat Yokaze's run with a 20:33 on November 2nd, 2015. Note, this is an 18:49 in-game time.
Let's fucking go, dude. Let's fucking go.
Pearstrike learned the Scooter strats for Beanstalk Park, Celestial Valley, and Sky Sands. He's still stuck with Slick Star for Frozen Hillside, and used Rocket Star for Checker Night, Machine Passage, Fantasy Meadows, and Magma Flows. Surprisingly, Pearstrike uses Bulk Star of all things for Nebula Belt. While it may sound ridiculous, it looks even more ridiculous. You see, Bulk Star has a glitch where it can build up a lot of speed off of ramps.
So pretty much every vehicle has some way that they interact when they're in the air. Most vehicles will move a little bit faster in the air. If they're falling, they might accelerate a little bit. So Bulk Star has that too, where if it's falling, it'll accelerate. And then since Bulk Star, its boost works as fuel, so like it just drains over time. When you go off the jump, so the idea is you go off a jump with full charge, and you can like slide while charging, so it doesn't like immediately stop you. So you slide off the jump at pretty much full charge, and then as you're falling, you're constantly gaining speed. And then the way that the charge release works is it adds about 60 kilometers an hour to whatever speed you started at. Your speed constantly climbs as the boost wears off, and it pretty much doesn't matter how fast you're going, it'll just add up to around 60 or so kilometers at the end. So if you hit the ground going 40, when the boost wears off, you'll be going 100. So you can pretty much use that. It gives you like so much speed, you can just kind of chain from boost to boost by going off the jump like that. So yeah, it's a super cool mechanic. My jaw literally dropped the first time I saw it. Like I've never had my jaw actually drop. Like it's a phrase, but I've never actually had it drop. But for like 2 minutes, just watching it, it was insane.
With this route, Pearstrike finally caught up to Yokaze. He wasn't quite at the same skill level, but he was determined.
Yeah, I'm very different in the sense that I don't think like I have any like the skill that they do. I think I just don't quit.
Unfortunately for Pearstrike, Yokaze doesn't like losing. On November 3rd, the very next day, Yokaze fires back with a 2010 RTA, or an 1824 in-game time.
But the skill level that like the top Japanese players were at was just way higher than like anyone in the Western community was at. Because I don't know, when you have someone in the community who learns how to do something, they kind of teach everyone else. But since it was the kind of language barrier, general communication barrier, then like we didn't learn directly, so it kind of took us a while to like catch up to them. So basically like Yokaze, he could just do like any no reset run, and like even though he doesn't spend any time practicing consistency, because like you don't need consistency for ILs, you just need to be able to go fast. It's like that's why his early runs weren't as good as like the record is now. Like he even in 2015 he would have been able to get a run as good as the current record or something like that. It's just he basically just did a run to beat the record because he didn't really care about the category. He just wanted a Japanese player to have the record, I think.
This time around, Yokaze actually used Rocket Star on Magma Flows. Wheelie Scooter wasn't even the fastest ride for each track. Magma Rocket was significantly faster than Scooter, so Yokaze caved in and had to use the faster ride. It was clear that Yokaze wasn't invincible. He may have been godlike, but he was still mortal. The Western community kept grinding away, but they still lagged behind. 6 months after Yokaze's 1824, nobody had ascended to the next level. Runners like SANIC, David, and Pearstrike were finally starting to get the hang of Wheelie Scooter, but it was all for naught. On June 1st, 2016, 7 months after his 1824, Yokaze achieved a 1729 in-game time, shaving almost a full minute off his already incredible run. He didn't need to change any rides either. Using the same ride and track route, Yokaze optimized every stage and solidified himself as the All Tracks champion.
Yeah, well, we all pushed it for a while, and we had a great time. You know, we had a good rivalry between all of us. It ended up then coming down to like me and David, and this happened right before my SuperSANIC 2016 run. Was when I got this. When me and David both got our last PBs, and yeah, then after that we just were playing so much of it, and we all just got burnt out kind of at the same time, or me and David both got burnt out at the same time, and it's mainly because of Nebula Belt with Wheelie Scooter. You usually have to start off the run doing that, and it's just spin dashing over and over and resetting like every time you mess up on one, and it's just super discouraging and frustrating and easy to get burnt out on that. So that's eventually what happened, and but then David moved to F-Zero and on some other categories. Like we both did Air Ride 100 checkboxes. You know, we did like all the other categories like around this time now is kind of when we branched out to everything. So,
but yeah, that was kind of a big thing. And honestly, actually, Nebula is the reason that I haven't gone back to it since then. It was just like the thing that was stopping me is like, especially at the time I was getting like 213 to 215 range on Nebula, and that's like 15 seconds lost to my PB. So it's like, why would I try and do all tracks if I am going to lose 15 seconds every time I do it? And I felt like I wasn't really improving at all at Nebula when I would try, because I wouldn't like spend enough time on it, because I would just play it and wouldn't get anywhere, and then I would stop. So that's kind of an issue that stopped me personally from running it.
The Westerners would keep grinding away, but this time was just too fast. Pearstrike ended up with a 1744, and Waves, Sanic, and David ended up with low 18s. Runners found that grinding out attempts with Wheelie Scooter was physically hurting their hands, as they were required to do about 100 wall spins per run. After hitting a dead end, the community effectively retired Kirby Air Ride all tracks. Without this main category, runners would move on to other ventures. Behind closed doors though, runners still wanted to play Air Ride all tracks, but didn't want to play with Scooter. A few ideas were bounced around and a new category was born: all tracks, no duplicate rides.
Yeah, that was SGDQ, and when we were there, Pearstrike and I were kind of just messing around the practice room. We were like, you know what'd be cool would be if we had a all tracks, no duplicate vehicles run. And we kind of talked about it, and because at that time, like, while Scooter's really fun and it's really fast, like, the better you get, the less you can use other vehicles. And like, since a lot of the vehicles have like cool tech and stuff like that, we're like, oh, you know, this might be a fun thing to work on. So we kind of came up with that category after. It's just like a miscellaneous category, but he and I have put quite a bit of work into it. So like, all tracks kind of died, but at least the focus between him and I kind of shifted to over to no dupes.
Because the all tracks run was now centralized around Wheelie Scooter, runners wanted to play with the many other rides they had at their disposal. Without wanting to outright ban Scooter or Rocket Star, limiting their use to one stage apiece seemed like the perfect solution.
Yeah, this is this was a race category at first, but it's all tracks, no duplicate rides. And basically it's just Air Ride all tracks, but with a different vehicle each for each course. And that's because, you know, if you, as you all know now, with Air Ride all tracks, it's all basically just Wheelie Scooter, and then at you know, the high level, it's all Wheelie Scooter and a couple Rocket Star tracks. But yeah, so for this new category, it's super fun, it's super diverse, it's a bunch of different vehicles, like some really weird vehicles like you know, Turbo Star and Bulk, everyone's favorite Bulk Star. And you know, it's just showing off more of the really cool mechanics of the game too, because each vehicle is super diverse in this game, and they all can do different wacky stuff that the others can't do. So,
like many other great categories, like Slick Star No A-Press, All Tracks No Dupes started out as an SRL race category. About a month and a half after Yokaze closed the books on All Tracks, the first ever runs of No Dupes materialize. The first ever world record is a bit of a toss-up, as some runners didn't record or submit their races to the leaderboard. But on July 15th, 2016, Pearstrike uploads a 20:33 in-game time. Before the community knew much about Wheelie Scooter, there were certain rides that were perfect for certain tracks. Slick Star is a clear winner for Frozen Hillside, as is Jetstar for Celestial Valley and Rocket Star for Magma Flows. For the rest of the tracks though, runners had to do some calculations to find out what rides were fastest on the other tracks. So here's how the no dupes route came about.
So for no dupes, basically, largely what we did was, at first, we just kind of theorized, and we kind of took some stuff based on what we had already practiced. So, for example, since like Wheelie Scooter was already used, because we kind of theorized immediately, like Wheelie Scooter saves way more time than anything else on Checker Nights, so we got to use it there because it's the longest course. Bulk Star isn't going to be good anywhere except Nebula, where it's very good, so we're going to use it there. There's no competition other than Rocket Star on Magma, so we have to use it there. Fantasy Meadows, it's a pretty short course, so we can do mostly anything, so we'll figure that out later. Jetstar, definitely we're going to use on Celestial Valley, because the only other option is Scooter, which is already being used. And then Frozen Hillside, like, since Slick Star is already like almost the best vehicle on the course, it's pretty tied with Scooter, like you definitely use it there. So we kind of like took the ones that were most obvious first, so most obvious would be Celestial Valley, Frozen Hillside, Magma, Nebula, and Checker Nights. Then we had Machine Passage, Sky Sands, Fantasy, and Beanstalk left. And then from those ones, we kind of took some stuff that we already knew. So, for example, or very initially, we used Wagon Star there, just because we had learned Wagon Star because you use it in 100 checkboxes. So since we already just like know how to play the time attack run of it, we just like started with that. Pretty quickly, we changed that to Wheelie Bike because it was better. We used Swerve Star on Machine Passage because Pearstrike had like a little like community challenge thing where he just really liked Swerve Star on that course, and he's like, oh, we should all like try and get our best times and whatever on that course. So we all just kind of like learned it for fun, or at least he did and I did. I think a few other people. So since we already knew that, like we started with that, and then we just like looked at the Speed Rider for Beanstalk, and basically looked down the line. It's like Scooter's taken, Rocket's taken, Jet's taken, Slick's taken, and the fifth vehicle is Turbo Star. So like, okay, we'll use Turbo there. So we learned Turbo, and then pretty much the same thing with Fantasy Meadows. Rocket's taken, Scooter's taken, Bike's taken, Bulk's taken, and then it was between Rex and Formula. Currently, Rex has a little bit better record. I think we thought like Formula would be more consistent, so we'll just go with that because it's only like half a second slower than Rex. Because it's a short course anyway, so if it's consistent, we'll take that. And then, yeah, for Sky Sands, we just, since we're using Swerve already on Machine Passage, we just looked down the line, and Bike was the next one. Eventually, later, we realized, okay, actually, it's faster to switch Swerve to Sky Sands and Bike to Machine Passage. So that's where we switched that, and that's kind of where we're at today. There were kind of like 3 additions to the route. Yeah, so it's a mix of like intuition and then using the Speed Rider list to figure out what we thought.
Anyways, back to the runs. Pearstrike put in a pretty good attempt, but the category was new, and the run wasn't optimized. Within a week, David would complete a run in 19 minutes and 50 seconds with a similar route. It would take some time to get used to all the rides on each track, and so progress moved slowly. Runners found that Turbo Star was a much better ride for Beanstalk Park, and decided to move Bike to Sky Sands, ousting Wagon Star. With this faster route, David would finish a run in 19 minutes and 35 seconds on August 9th. As usual, SANIC quietly grinded away until one day, on August 14th, when he achieved a 1921 using the same route as David. David also kept grinding, and eventually got a 1912 on September 9th, 2016. The runners would eventually cool down, and the records would stop. Once again, however, the Western community was visited by the Masters from the East. Hero of the Turbo Star and IL legend Luca tries his hand at all tracks no dupes. Luca starts off by swapping Swerve Star and Wheelie Bike. Bike is about 5 seconds faster on Machine Passage, and Swerve is about 6 seconds faster on Sky Sands. With his expert play across the other stages as well, Luca takes the world record with an 1854 on November 9th, 2016.
はい、どうすかはあ、疲れた。
As fast as it was created, the category was pushed to the edge, hitting a wall after just 4 months. With the top level runners burnt out, Luca's run was the last nail in the coffin for this alternative category.
I kind of took a break from the game anyway because I started running F-Zero GX, and that's what I've run mostly for the past 3 years. So I've kind of come back to Air Ride here and there, but for the most part it's been for no dupes and kind of other categories too, like Air Ride 100 checkboxes. Yeah, I kind of died, just kind kind of lost interest. I think probably the biggest reason was Nebula Belt is such a grind. It's like 60 spin dashes in a row or whatever. It's just really hard to do, and like you have that wall at the beginning of a run, just kind of made it a little bit unappealing to run.
Kirby Air Ride would lay dormant for a full year. David and SuperSANIC would go focus on F-Zero GX, while Pearstrike would go run other games like Sonic Adventure 2. It wasn't until the start of 2018 that the game would see any major activity, when Pearstrike started running 5 hot dog %. Psst, go watch that video, it's great. While it was a silly category, it got Pearstrike back into all tracks, no dupes. On days where Pearstrike wasn't feeling up to no dupes ILs, he would grind out hot dog runs. Starting in May, Pearstrike got back to work, seriously going for the no dupes world record. Following in Luca's footsteps, Pearstrike adopted the new route. On and off, Pearstrike showed the same determination he did with all tracks a few years prior. Knowing that a better time was possible, he wouldn't stop until he was back on top. Finally, in December of 2018, after 7 months of practice and attempts, Pearstrike's hard work paid off. The run started off alright, keeping pace with his PB, but by the time he made it to Sky Sands, Pearstrike was in the zone. The man who couldn't stop talking was too focused to speak, as he blew through each track. On the home stretch, Pearstrike can see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to come in close. As the run came to an end, Pearstrike popped off, having taken the world record with an 18:52, beating Luca's time by just 2 seconds.
Dude, no fucking way, man! No fucking way, dude! That should be fucking it, baby! Fuck, man! Holy fucking shit, dude! No way! No way! Since May, I've been grinding this. What is that, fucking 7 months? 7 months straight? 6 months, half a year straight? Oh, fuck, man. Holy shit. Yeah. Man, that feels fucking good.
After working so hard those last 7 months, it was finally over.
And then in 2018, starting in May, I believe, I started picking it back up and focusing on it. It was like my first big air ride grind in a while. Well, actually, I did City Trial 100 checkboxes. That was hell. So this was like kind of back to, like an air ride all tracks grind. And I did that for 7 months, I think. And then I got the record and I beat Luca.
Pearstrike's time on top wouldn't last forever, though. Unlike with all tracks, however, there wasn't someone to take the record back within a few days. Pearstrike would enjoy the crown for 3 whole months before the competition came biting at his heels. As a testament to how far the Western community had come, Luca, one of the elite Japanese runners, was only able to shave off 3 seconds from world record. On February 2nd, 2019, Luca finally takes back the world record with an 18:49.
Okay. GG.
Around the beginning of April, David came back and started grinding ILs again. He realized he had a lot of time to save, and made it his mission to lower his time significantly. Now that he was back in the groove of things, he applied his skill to lowering his time in the no dupes category. On April 25th, David got an 18:49.9, coming in behind world record by 0.8 seconds.
Hey. That wasn't actually 18 seconds faster. But that was really fast.
David was playing hot, and he knew it. The time had come. It was time to slay the giant. David took aim at the old all tracks world record. What was once such a daunting time was looking more and more manageable. 3 years ago, the top American runners couldn't follow Yokaze's time. They tried their best, but they were still 15 to 20 seconds behind. Now, David knew he had what it takes. David has a habit of putting his mind to a goal and then crushing it. David was able to get a major PB in no dupes within a week or two of starting attempts. David wouldn't need 7 months of grinding to reach the top. He needed 1. It was a Tuesday, May 28th. David starts a run, his first attempt after hitting the 1000 mark. On Nebula Belt, he finishes in the green, saving time on this split. Then he saves time again, and again, and again, and again. David saves seconds on every split, including 3 best splits back-to-back in Machine Passage, Beanstalk Park, and Fantasy Meadows. David finishes the run 24 seconds ahead of his PB. The All Tracks record had stood for almost 3 years. Just 3 days before Yokaze's record anniversary, David finally topples the Japanese giant. On May 28, 2019, David secures a 17:15, beating Yokaze by 14 seconds.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude, that's so stupid. What the fuck was that run? What the fuck?
And that is where the record stands today. David has gone on record saying that the category deserves sub 17. Technically, using the combined world records for each track, we could maybe see a sub 16 someday. But ILs are different. Runners burn thousands of attempts trying to shave off a second or two from their PBs. But All Tracks rewards consistency over top speed. Runners have to be proficient at each stage, utilizing the best strategies they have available, all in real time. So who knows what the future holds? Yokaze is known for coming out of the woodwork anytime his records are beaten, but he's been rather inactive lately. Maybe a new challenger will arise to take sub 17. As these runners have shown, with time and determination, anyone can reach the top. Hey, thanks for watching our video. If you want to join the community, check out our Discord. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. It really helps. Thanks.